Good evening and thank you for joining us for KREM 2 News at 5 tonight. I'm Mark Hanrahan.
It's good to have you here. I'm Whitney Ward. We begin tonight as Spokane fire crews are working to mop up a brush fire that was burning very close to Kendall Yards.
You may have seen the smoke on your drive home earlier tonight, so here's what we know right now. Our downtown tower camera captured video of the smoke plume earlier this afternoon. The fire was reported at around 3:40 this afternoon. According to the Spokane Fire Department, it was contained about 30 minutes later. KREM 2 was on the scene and saw fire crews mopping up that fire and making sure there were no flare-ups. It burned, we're told, less than a quarter of an acre. We are waiting to hear how that fire was sparked.
In other top stories today, testimony began in the trials for 5 members of the white nationalist group Patriot Front who were all arrested in Coeur d'Alene last year on their way to allegedly disrupt the Coeur d'Alene Pride in the Park event. Authorities
arrested 31 people after finding them in the back of a U-Haul truck. Cameras are not allowed in the courtroom in Idaho, but KREM 2 has been there listening to the testimony. The 5 men all opted to go to trial after pleading not guilty to conspiracy to riot charges. That's a misdemeanor, punishable by up to 1 year in jail and or $5,000 in fines. At the time of their arrest, the men all wore the same thing and their hats were reinforced with hard plastic inserts.
The group's defense attorney argued that none of their behavior constituted them as a threat nor constituted an arrest, but instead, they said, police arrested the men for wearing the Patriot uniform. And among the law enforcement who testified in court today were Coeur d'Alene Police Captain David Hagar, who was there when police opened the U-Haul at that moment. He testified that inside the U-Haul, they found 15 metal shields, 2 plastic shields, 2 10-foot poles with what appeared to be American flags at the top, 6 handheld two-way radios, individual first aid kits, and other protective equipment. He testified that during their investigation, police came to believe that the group inside the truck was headed to the Pride event, likely to cause a disturbance. And also, they said they were concerned those shields and poles were intended to cause harm.
The state rested its case against the men today. And for more information about all of today's testimony, you can just head to our website, KREM.com. By the way, the trial is expected to continue with defense arguments coming up tomorrow morning. All right, let's talk weather now. After a couple of days in the 80s, the heat returned today and will likely continue to climb into the weekend.
It was a noticeable jump today. Our chief meteorologist, Jeremy Legoo, is joining us now, tracking that heat that is headed this way.
Yeah, and there's even more of it in the days to come. Our temperatures on the warm side of things. Seriously, 90 degrees. We did it. We got back into the 90s here in Spokane and across the border. 86 up in Sandpoint. If you head out into central Washington, temperatures in the mid-90s. Near 90 in Pullman and Moscow, 97 in Lewiston, and even Omak. 94 degrees. In the days to come, we're talking enough heat for another round of heat advisories. These in place for the Lewis and Clark Valley. High temperatures will range between 93 and 107, and it is just going to be that kind of warm across much of the inland Northwest. Hard pressed to find anything else on the radar. Once again, you got to zoom out pretty far to do so, and we are going to talk what all of this means coming up, because this makes for a very interesting forecast. We're still talking the heat. We're still talking the ridge of high pressure. We're still talking those temperatures close to 100 degrees both Thursday and Friday before we cool down and get a bit breezy over the weekend. So we're also talking increased fire danger.
All right, here we go again. Jeremy, thank you very much. New tonight, after nearly 80 years, the remains of a World War II veteran from Spokane have finally been identified.
The POW MIA recently identified as 36-year-old Sergeant James M. Triplett after his plane was shot down over northern Germany back in 1944. Witnesses who ejected and survived that crash said they didn't see Triplett ever get out, and he was never reported as a German prisoner of war. He was declared dead in 1945. Following the end of the war, the remains were found but never identified. The POW MIA continued to work to identify the remains from the wreckage and eventually were able to link them to Triplett just last year.
He is being buried at Arlington National Cemetery in October. For more on this story, just head to our website, KREM.com.
We are digging deeper tonight into a new report that shows crime increased across Washington last year.
Tonight we are looking at the data, and we are also talking to the Spokane County Sheriff about the increase. As Shannon Mowdy found out, he places much of the blame on Olympia.
From theft to murder, crime was up in Washington state last year. That's across all crime categories, according to a report from Washington sheriffs and police chiefs. Spokane County Sheriff John Knowles wasn't surprised by the numbers.
If you don't do anything to disrupt poor behavior, hold someone accountable for bad behavior, you can just expect more of that.
He points to the state legislature for the rise in reported crime. Let's look at property crime, which saw one of the largest bumps, up nearly 10% from the year before. That includes things like theft, robbery, and car theft. In Spokane County, there were 2,768 thefts in 2022 and 917 stolen cars. That rose from 669 in 2021.
And that's just what's being reported. I know there are citizens who have expressed to me and other people that they are so frustrated with the lack of accountability that they don't call and report.
Knowles blames two major policy changes: a reduction in Washington's prison population and the legislature lowering minimum sentences for many crimes. He says people with multiple repeat felonies are spending less than a year in jail oftentimes and may never make it to prison.
We now have a jail where literally every time we book somebody in, somebody has to come out the door on the other side. Full on 14% of the people we book never see the inside of a jail cell at the jail they're released before they ever spend a day in jail.
KREM 2 News reached out to Governor Inslee's office. His press secretary says the state's statutory penalties have never incentivized anyone to reoffend, pointing to a DOJ study saying reoffenses are often due to lack of resources and other economic factors. He says crime has increased nationally beginning with the pandemic, but Washington is working to address it. On the local level, Sheriff Knowles says Spokane County needs more jail space and an alternative to jail for substance use treatment.
But we have to have something waiting in the wings if they don't take advantage of it that's worse than going to the treatment. And we don't have that right now.
Shannon Mounty, KREM 2 News.